Hello, my name is Phoenix Ash, and today I would like to present my Pragmatics of Humor lesson plan. This is the first lesson plan in which we will analyze the anatomy of humor and what goes into making a joke. To start off, though, let's talk about the importance of humor. Humor in practice is often left out of traditional curriculum when learning a new language, which can often lead to miscommunications between native speakers and new speakers, and can potentially lead to feelings of alienation or isolation within this new culture. This is no less true for the English language, and when engaging with North American culture, new speakers will bump into tons of these roadblocks where their acute knowledge of grammatical structures might fail to capture the real meaning of what is being said. Continue on, we have this wonderful quote. English language learners are dependent on a full range of linguistic expression in order to build and express their identity, and humor is a prevalent mode of expression in American culture. Therefore, by addressing humor explicitly, language teachers may be able to enrich the cadre of linguistic expression available to our students. Humor is essential to the means of self expression within American culture, and it is incredibly important to find ways to incorporate humor into your daily communication. This lesson plan seeks to begin that process by detailing what goes into it and how to acclimate into it. So, let's start with what goes into it. The anatomy of humor. In general, when discussing jokes, especially within American culture, they tend to follow a rhythmic pattern of these three kind of pillars, one right after the other. And these parts tend to fall in these categories: setup, build up, and punchline. Understanding each of these subcategories will help rationalize how these jokes work and how they will be utilized at every level of society, from daily conversations to dedicated comedy specials. Firstly, let's start with the setup. The setup is the beginning of a joke. It establishes the constants of the scene that will later be subverted. It provides context for the audience to ground their own experiences into so that they can relate to the scene. And it is important for a setup to be a hook as well. The premise needs to be interesting enough to keep the audience's attention for the duration of the joke. Moving forward, we could go into the build up. The build up is the following through of the setup, leading into the punchline. It acts as a bridge that adds layers to the scene and builds the momentum towards the final subversion of expectations. This is the part where most of the tension and detail should be placed in order to create the most successful reveal of the punchline, all the while having enough interest to keep the audience engaged for the final stage, which is naturally the punchline. This is the final reveal in which the precedents that were created by both the setup and the build-up are somehow twisted or subverted, and this betrayal of our expectations is where we find the humor. A punchline is typically shorter than its previous counterparts, allowing less time for the audience to catch wind of what is happening before it happens, creating a more surprising and thus more exciting payoff. Let's start with an example of how these parts can kind of come together from our very
What's that casino standing by the door? They're blocking the fire exit. As though if there was a fire, I wasn't gonna run. If you're flammable and have legs, you are never blocking a fire exit.
that incredible Mitch Hedberg bit can really be broken down into the three pillars that we just discussed. Starting with the setup, I was at a casino, I was standing by the door. This is a simple but good setup. He sets the scene, letting us know everything we need to know for the joke moving forward, and it grounds us with him. As for the most part, we know or can infer what a casino looks like and why he might be casually sitting beside the door. The build-up. A security guard came over and said, "You're gonna have to move, you're blocking the fire exit." This build-up serves to add some complexity to the situation, but not so much that it overturns the joke and spoils the punchline. The security guard is introduced and brings a conflict with them, that the speaker is going to do something, that the speaker is doing something that they shouldn't, and we'll have to resolve that in the punchline. As though if there was a fire, I wasn't gonna run. If you're flammable and have legs, you are never blocking a fire exit. Here we see Mitch Hedberg nail the punchline by subverting the regular social expectations of the scene at hand. In general, when confronted with authority, we are expected to be apologetic and compliant. The mundane response to this event would be to simply move out of the way, but Mitch responds with his own twist of logic that still rings true in his audience's ears. So now that we've covered the basics of what makes a joke, it's important to sharpen your skills at practicing with each other. Think of anything humorous you have in your head, whether it is a funny scene that you have invented or something funny that has happened to you in real life, and try to put it within the terms of a setup, a build-up, and a punchline. Try to make sure the audience understands the scene and the premise, and then lead any growing tensions or other complications into the scene, and then finally show how you diverge from what the average response to this conundrum would be. And then we're done. Now that you've learned how to phrase your stories into the rhythm of comedy, the only thing left to do is to practice, practice, and practice. Comedy is hard, but finding humor can be easy. And you won't be expected to provide Mitch Hedberg level material in your day to day life. Just keep at it and make sure you're having fun. That was my lesson plan, and I hope you all enjoyed it.